All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I just got done making one YouTube video. We are currently uploading that as we speak. However, the title is as such that you guys might not actually watch it, even though you guys probably should watch it if you're interested in Season of Discovery PvP gearing. But since I basically laid everything out in that video for the game deving SoD, I decided that I might as well make this one really fast. And Lord knows I don't make fast videos as far as how you should be gearing your Paladin in Season of Discovery. And the first thing I have to point out to you is just how classic World of Warcraft works from a baseline perspective. What that means is when you are butt naked with nothing but your weapon, in classic World of Warcraft, what does your HP look like? What does your DPS look like? What does your critical strike chance look like? How much base stats on your character, like what percentage of your DPS actually comes from your weapon? What percentage of it comes from your gear? What percentage of your health comes from just standing there butt naked versus your gear, yada, yada, yada. This is very important because in different iterations of WoW, it actually does change. So, for example, in TBC, you have a lot more stamina than you have DPS, than you have plus healing. In Classic WoW, you actually have a lot more DPS butt naked than you think you would, and this is going to cause you to gear differently in Season of Discovery than you think you otherwise would gear. It definitely causes you to gear more tanky in Era, but you still want more DPS in your Era gear, so you'll sacrifice HP and tankiness for more DPS in Era. In Season of Discovery, odds are you want to go almost pure tank gear, and I'm trying to show you why from a pure mathematical perspective here. Okay, so here we have a level 60 Dwarf Paladin, absolutely butt naked with nothing but a Mina Minithil. Let's look at his damage. His damage is about 125 white DPS. His melee crit is close to 7%. That might not be right. The talents might be off. Yeah, there we go. Let's max out that real fast. Go back to the gear. Yeah, so he's sitting at almost 11% critical strike. If he was a human and not a dwarf, that actually would be 11% critical strike because humans get more agility and dwarves get more stamina built into their character. All right, flash forward over to a class or to a gear that's like almost pure DPS that you would never take into PvP because, dear God, it has no effing stamina. So at Era, you would never take this into PvP. At SoD, you would super never take this into PvP because it's only got 4,500 HP. Has no enchants. If you put the enchants on, that might shoot up to like 4,900 HP, maybe 5,000 HP. Still would never want to take this into combat, but it's close enough at that point that you might be interested in taking it into combat. Let's look at the stats. She has almost 3.5% critical. The 5 is still here. Can I put a point in there? What's going on here? You're supposed to be a level 60. Oh, I took command rather than the point of critical strike. Oh, okay. We'll roll with it. So maybe 1% more critical strike, but you'll actually look at her damage. It's only 163, which means all the strength and all the attack power. And this gets worse if you factor in might. So, for example, there's 954 attack power on this character, dear God, and there's still 400 attack power on this character. Like, what the hell is going on? The reason why the damage is so high when you're butt naked and HP levels and stuff is you have base stats, which you can see right here. If I make this none, but we got to put like some kind of weapon here real fast. If you're just curious, I'll explain this really quickly. So you can see that with a sword that doesn't even do 1 DPS and being butt naked, I still do almost 27 DPS. If I put might on this thing, that would be another plus 13 DPS. So we'd be doing almost 40 DPS butt naked with nothing but a sword. Partly what's going on here is you have a bunch of stats just built into your character like baseline, but there's also a bunch of hidden stats. Like, for example, there's like 190 strength worth of DPS that you're just not, that just isn't in the skill here. And you can see this in the attack power really fast. 374 attack power. So 374 divided by 2 equals, we should have like 187 strength, but we only have like 107 strength. And then the 107 strength's actually not even really doing it, so it's like question mark. So I minus like 107 from this, and it's like, okay, so I have like 80 strength on this character that's just magically part of the DPS, but just isn't there. Like, what the hell is going on? The exact same story happens with stamina. You can see we have about 1,000, and the 3 here is literally from being a dwarf. So if I was a human, I would have 1,000 HP, but I scroll up here, and you can see I have like 120 stamina just built into the character, seemingly for no reason. It's the exact same story with the mana. You have about 120 intellect that's just built into your character, seemingly for no reason. Just is what it is. Welcome to Classic World of Warcraft. But basically what this means is, I don't want none. Yeah, Might of Minithil. Is that butt naked with no gear whatsoever, you actually have reasonable combat stats. And this happens baseline even for spellcasters, right? Because the spellcasters, their spells will say something like, oh, it's a lightning bolt. It does between 600 and 700 damage. And by the time you get all the spell power in the game and you're fully geared, your lightning bolt says it does between 800 and 900 damage. Like, the spell power didn't increase the DPS of your spells by all that much. A lot of your damage just comes baked into your class, butt naked, just as is, right? Okay, cool. Now, what that means in Era is that you can gear tanky with while still having a considerable amounts of DPS, but we desperately still need the damage in Era because we don't have all the extra attacks and all the extra runes and so forth and so on. Particularly for Paladin, but just for just about any class in the game follows these rules. You don't need the extra. You need the extra damage more than you need the HP in Era. Flash forward to Season of Discovery, and there's a dynamic shift change where you need the durability far more than you need the increase in DPS because you already have shit tons of DPS. And again, we're showcasing that here, where we went up like almost 600 attack power, but our DPS went up by a relatively pitiful amount, or white damage at least. Mostly it's the critical strike. Critical strike is a far more valuable stat for you as a paladin because you have so much of your damage is just coming from standing there butt naked and your weapon. It gets even worse when you factor in Blessing of Might, when you factor in Seal, when you factor in Judgment, when you factor in Crusader Strike, when you factor in Divine Storm, just how much of your DPS is actually coming from just standing there butt naked with nothing but a weapon. Everything else you're gaining from increasing strength is relatively minor, with the sole exception that melee critical strike will increase your damage by a considerable amount more than all of the attack power. So let's just look at how much this over doubling our attack power goes from standing butt naked. So what was it? It was like 125, and if I multiply this, it's probably maybe like a 30% increase. Yeah, it's literally a 30% increase. So all that attack power gear from a fully geared character is only increasing my DPS by 30%. The melee critical strike is doing probably more work, or as much work as the attack power is. Like, it's legitimately insane how much more valuable critical strike is in classic WoW than attack power is. Okay, let's actually look at this more at level 25. So I'll bring this down at level 25, and we'll actually talk about how you're supposed to be gearing your character. I want none. I still want none. Thank you for the none. Okay, cool. Let's look at this. Let's look at actual math in Season of Discovery really fast here. So this math down here is comparing those two level 60 paladins in their gear. Like, how much damage are you actually going up once we factor in Blessing of Might, once we factor in armor, once we factor in Crusader Strike as far as Era is concerned. You can see you go up about 53 DPS. So the difference between a butt-naked paladin with Might of Minithil and a fully geared a paladin with Might of Minithil and a Seal of Command and all that good stuff is like maybe a 50% damage increase at the end of the day, which is really, really sad. But welcome to Classic World of Warcraft and how the stats and the mechanics of the game work. Let's look at SoD. And this is for level 25 SoD. This is all the stuff right here. So the first one up here is a 60 DPS Paladin. This is a pure DPS Paladin with a Hydra Blade, 20% critical strike chance. Only has almost no HP whatsoever, like 1100 HP. The 50 DPS one is one that's gearing far more HP oriented, almost all tank gear. It's not focusing on DPS all that much. And then we have one down here for checking spell power ratio, just to see what that looks like in Season of Discovery. And this is where you get 1, 2, 3 Paladin, 1, 2, 3 Paladin, 1, 2, 3 Paladin. And of course, this is Divine Storm, Crusader Strike. Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Avenger Shield, Seal of Martyrdom, CS, and Avengers. What does that look like? Because Seal of Martyrdom is extraordinarily mana efficient, so you can actually gear a little bit differently if you're using Seal of Martyrdom. How much damage do we lose compared to if instead we were operating with Divine Storm? You can see we don't lose that much DPS, but I haven't calculated it for, like, burst damage. You jump on them, all your things being front-loaded kind of a deal. And then, of course, down here we have the build that you would use almost exclusively for, like, a spell power heavy build. You can see that Crusader Strike is here, but it shouldn't be there. In theory, you can use Crusader Strike with such a fast one-handed weapon. It's not that big of a deal. You hit with the one-hander, you swap to the two-hander, you Divine Storm, you Crusader Strike, you wait like 0.2 seconds, and you smack them with your two-hander, then you swap right back to the one-hander and rinse and repeat. So it's very easy to actually fit in without losing any real DPS, Divine Storm and Crusader Strike. But in theory, you'd probably want to do more, like take Hand of Reckoning instead, but keep Divine Storm. That way, when you're chasing somebody, like let's say they break contact with you, because this is supposed to be like a sword and board spell-powered geared Paladin. If they break contact with you, you swap over to your two-hander. You get to pick up Reckoning charges. When you make contact with them, you get to put an auto attack into them. You get to Divine Storm on them, Crusader Strike on them, put one more auto attack into them, and then boom, you switch over to one-hander sword and board and stick them with the spell power pointy end. Classic Holy Reckoning combat style, and it actually fits in surprisingly well with the really fast one-handers, which I am impressed. But look at the DPS loss here. So even if you disagree with the DPS numbers that are being thrown down here, it's the ratios you really want to pay attention to. So I haven't ratioed this out, but you can see what percentage of your damage is coming from your white DPS versus what percentage is coming from your seals versus what percentage is coming from which runes you're taking and why. So, for example, you can see Crusader Strike is doing more work than Divine Storm. That's just from a pure DPS perspective. From a front-loaded perspective, they're probably a lot more even. Seal Command isn't anywhere near as powerful as it could be, or it will eventually be, because we're using faster two-handed weapons. We're not hit capped, and we don't have Vengeance and all the other good things that really synergize with Seal of Command. Avenger Shield is Avenger Shield. Unfortunately, you need it. Yada yada yada. But here's the tail of the tape over here. All this math was done against a 30% armored target. When you get up to level 60, you have to do your math versus more of a 40% armored target. Even the Clothies basically have a 40% damage reduction in the grand scheme of things. No, I am not joking. They get a lot of like armor increases or damage reductions or this or that. It's literally just Mage that doesn't have a 40% damage reduction at a minimum in World of Warcraft. All the male classes, even without a shield, are 40% armor. Two-handed plate wearers are 50% armor. You get the idea. So just factor it with 40% armor. It'll give you a much more comprehensive understanding. But here's the tail of the tape here. The difference in DPS between this and this is about 30%. Let me pull up the calculator. Let me prove that real fast. So we got 8.65 times 1.3. So this is a 30% DPS increase, and you can see we're even over the DPS of this thing here. So if we gear a Paladin in Season of Discovery in pure DPS gear versus we gear a Paladin in Season of Discovery with pure tank gear, the difference in DPS is only 30%. So this Paladin has 30% more DPS than this Paladin does. And keep in mind, this would be a little bit different if this Paladin also had the plus 5% critical strike. If he had he's also using Seal of Command and stuff like that, it would be even closer. It would be closer to like a 26% DPS increase. But the HP levels have gone up by like 2/3, by like 66%. So your options are, I can increase my DPS by 30%, or I can increase my HP pools by 60% in Season of Discovery. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that you're most likely better off going with the HP level increases. It's that way in normal Classic, and when you give us a bunch of extra DPSing abilities, it only becomes even more so in Season of Discovery. Gear your Paladins to be tanky boys. Gear them in tank gear. Do not put them in pure DPS gear and then wonder why you're getting popped out of existence in PvP. That just don't do it. The math is screaming this at you, basically, for all the reasons that I've been describing so far. There's a lot of DPS baked into your class naturally, just standing there butt naked. There's very little DPS increase outside from strength gear. Most DPS increase is coming from increases to critical strike chance, which means a lot of that 30% increase in DPS is coming from the 10% increase in critical strike chance over the other build, not from the actual strength increases. Furthermore, they gave you a bunch of abilities that increase your DPS, which means you even less so do you need to increase your DPS. You already have plenty of DPS. Even more so do you need durability. And of course, the one-handed, the spell power version, this blue thing here is much more reasonable. This is the DPS with no Crusader Strike and then no Consecration. If you actually do factor in Consecration or Crusader Strike, because you can fit it in just like I said you would, you lose some SOR DPS while you're dicking around with the Crusader Strike. It's not as much as you would think, so this might be a 10% DPS increase from Crusader Strike, which is still 87. It's just still extremely competitive with the other things. The reason why I prefer no Crusader Strike in this build is because it allows you to take Hand of Reckoning. And when you have Hand of Reckoning, that really synergizes, it really helps your healing, and it helps your low HP pool, and it helps synergize with the fact that you have a pretty good amount of bonus healing, a pretty deep HP bar. You don't really need the increase in DPS. You could very much use the increase in HP and the increased mana efficiency. So you can let your HP fall kind of low and then go into a heal mode, and you should be able to out-heal most of the dots and enemy spellcasters and get back in the fight and beat the crap out of them. I question whether I need the increase in the 10 DPS over the much more efficient healing and the increase in HP. More importantly, it allows me to absolutely murder warlocks, which I find absolutely hilarious because you can do a... there's a build where it's literally this: 1300 HP, 1800 mana, 80 spell power, and 5% critical strike with a 1.3 one-hander, and then you have like 46 or 40 or 51 shadow resist at level 25. If you have Hand of Reckoning and Inspiration Exemplar, you're going to murder warlocks. I'm not talking about the tanky warlocks, even though you will murder them as well. I'm talking about like the Affliction warlocks that are going to dot you up and you don't have cleanse. There's not anything you can do about it. Fall below 35% life, and then or even at 40% life, get it within that range, heal within that range, and you're going to have like a 40% spell damage reduction versus warlocks. They can't keep a fear on you. They have to root themselves in place in order to... I could build it for you really fast if you guys wanted me to pause the video here. But they have to root themselves in place in order to cast a fear on you. You have a 40% chance to resist the fears, 5% base chance to resist the fear. They also have a miss chance on their spells. You could factor that in as well. You have the talent points that give you 10% increased chance to resist fears. Already that's 15%. And then there's like a 20-25% chance that you just resist the spell outright. So you're like a 40-45% chance to resist the fears. Even when the fears do land on you, they don't last very long because of Inspiration Exemplar. When they're trying to stand there and cast the spheres, and you're beating the crap out of them with a 1.3 speed weapon with SOR, they're suffering ×2 pushback at 1.3 weapon speed. It's going to take them 4 to 5 seconds to cast a fucking fear on you. It has a 40 to 45% chance to resist when it finally does land on you. It's not going to last very long. The point is, that's how you catch them. You catch them not with Avenger's Shield, but with the fact that they're gonna have to stop and try to cast fear on you at some point in time. If it resists, then you're just all over them, giving them the business with the high amount of damage. You have the damage reduction, you have the mana pool, you have the plus healing. You're just gonna murder warlocks. All right, well, let's actually show some proper Season of Discovery PvP gearing really fast here. Let's do it wrong first, and then I'll do it right. So Twilight Avenger Helm, you're not taking that. That's a terrible idea. What the hell are you smoking? Please don't take that fucking helmet. Are you retarded? This thing is hot garbage. Yes, I know it increases your hit chance by 1%, but the fact that it has 3 fucking stamina on it means that you need to put this in the trash. It is hot garbage. Please do not take this in PvP. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. This is extremely good PvP gear. Very easy to get. High stamina, a little bit of strength. We want stamina. We want stamina. We want stamina. You want your Sergeant's Cloak for sure. Your chest is going to be your Twilights, just because it's one of the best chests you can possibly stake as far as stats are concerned. Not any really good male options for gearing. You could take the leather gloves just to increase your hit chance. I would suggest the stamina intellect ones just to get your stamina up a little bit. The agility is not a bad stat for you at these low levels because it does scale dynamically. You could take the leather gloves instead. The algae gauntlets aren't that good because they're super low stamina, but there just isn't any other real good chunky stamina option in the entire game. Brawler's gloves, drops, binds when equipped. Maybe you put Brawler's gloves on instead. We'll throw that on just for shits and giggles. I didn't realize those existed, but 7 stamina is 7 stamina. But we have to compare that to what are we losing from algae gloves. Not that much that we care about the grand scheme of things. We're definitely prioritizing stamina above all. This one I definitely know. It's not Pugilist. It's the Hydrexians. Again, 7 stamina, 4 strength. Perfectly designed bracers. I said I would do it wrong first, but we're doing it right. It's just the helm that's wrong. I want to talk about the helm in a second. Only really good belt in the game. This is pretty good. Strength, stamina, high, good. Take it. Done. We want the Twilight gear. Not Twilight. It's actually Leggings of the Faithful. There is no Twilight legs. The best pants, they're the highest stamina pants that you can possibly take, and they got combat stats on them. There's nothing to complain about here whatsoever. And then a boots, you end up having either the crab shells, which is 11 strength and 6 stamina, or the Twilights. Twilights is just about as good. It's 1 less stamina. Let's see what else it's losing. 11 strength versus 6. Yeah, so it's the Twilight one's actually worth it for the 2-set bonus, believe it or not. So you take Twilights. We can lose that point of strength. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's this damn helm that's a piece of crap. Right? You want this helm to get rid of this helm. If you're wearing this helm, you're a moron. Please take it off. Yes, I know it's increasing your chance to hit by 1%. Yes, I'm aware of how valuable that is with Seal of Command. Just don't do it. Make one of these pieces of gear epic and get your hit rate up that way. Don't 3 out of 3 this. This just does not have enough stamina to make the cut. Let me put the stamina on from an enchant perspective, just so we can observe this real fast, so we can actually see what's going on. No stam there, no stam there. I think it's 3 stamina over here, and then we need a weapon. All right, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this wrong right now. So, rings. We're gonna put the right rings on. Seal of Rin is one of the correct rings to have. And then the other correct ring to have is a Plains ring, because you definitely do need some intellect, and Lord knows it has a lot of stamina. There's a reason why it's so fucking expensive in Season of Discovery. Boom. Okay, as you can see, this build is not half bad. She's geared partly correctly, and she's geared partly incorrectly. Let me take a drink of water here. She is geared incorrectly in that she has two pieces of gear specifically that are too low stamina to really be viable. So this helm is too low stamina to be viable, even though it gives you a plus 1% melee hit. And then Deadly Strike of the Hydra, even though she's really good. Vegan's Fist is actually better, just because she actually has stats on her. But you can see our stamina is not too terribly bad. Let's look at our DPS. Our melee crit, we have no idea what it is, because it doesn't factor very well. But you can see we're at about 53 DPS in this character with, not like 1450 HP. This is not bad. This is not bad. But watch what happens if I just do something similar. So I highly suggested you do one of the two. You can keep the helm if you go a Vegan's Fist. Or you can ditch the helm for the far more tanky, far better helm, and keep the Hydra Strike. Let's try that. Let's try ditching the helm real fast to see what happens. So Shadow Coif is by far the better helm because it gives you so much more stamina. Holy crap! You go up like 110 stamina. You don't. It gives you bonus armor. This is the helm you want to wear for PvP. The Avengers helm is trolling the fuck out of you. In the grand scheme of things, yeah, you lose it's just so much better to have this this HP. So now this HP is high enough that we're actually looking at something reasonable here. Our DPS didn't go down all that much, even though we probably lost like 1% crit from all that agility. This is good. This is nice and solid. If you don't have a Hydra Strike, you can make it even better, because you can throw on a Vegan's Fist, and then that's how you get close to like 1700 HP. This is roughly what I play in PvP. This is basically my PvP gear. 6 ways from Sunday. I don't use Seal of Command, so I'm far more interested in going like a Talberd and Arctic Buckler, and then I think you can squeeze on the the +3 stamina onto the Arctic Buckler. I could be wrong, but that's how you're getting very close to 1700 HP. If we look at our damage here, you can see we've got 45 DPS, with the critical strike being up there as well. Vegan's Fist makes it, I think, 48% DPS. Yes, 48. Vegan's Fist, boom, 48. Damage? Yeah. So you're getting closer to 45. It's important to realize there's no Blessing of Might involved in these numbers. That's why the numbers change when you actually look at the stats that I showed previously, because you have to factor in Blessing of Might as one of the things there. But yeah, so if you have a Hydra, right, I was gonna see what happens if this is high HP. This is pretty good, right? With food buff, you're going to be 1700 easy HP, no problem. What happens if I switch this out? You're going to go down another 110 HP. So the other option, of course, was Twilight Avengers Helm and then Vegan's Fist. So my option was 15, like maybe 1600 HP with a food buff. Damage is 48, and I have like 1% more critical strike. Not bad. And of course, the other option was Deadly Hydra, but then we actually have to put on the Tank Helm. Again, we have got even more HP, but we're sitting around that 1600 HP mark. 1% less melee critical, but our DPS goes up by a significant margin. You know, went up from like 48 to 53, went up by like 5 DPS. That's not bad. That's a 10% damage increase. The thing to avoid, like the plague, of course, is to get too greedy with the DPS and then put on the Twilight Helm. Or to get even more greedy with the DPS, and then to decide you don't want this ring, you want the highest DPS ring you can possibly get your hands on. The 6 strength, 6 stamina rings, not the worst thing in the world if you get your hands on it, but it's still... Look, our HP is dropping insanely low at this point. I don't feel comfortable with this HP level at all, even with the DPS increases. Okay, we're backed up to like 1600 HP. I'm feeling more comfortable. Make sure... the only other thing to consider in all of this is your mana levels. This mana level of 932 mana is actually not enough mana to really get the job done. It is and it isn't. The reason why it is because if you are Engineering. Okay, yeah, I forgot the trinket that gives you plus 4 stamina. But you might be using PvP trinket anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Let's find Recombobulator. So with your Paladins in Season of Discovery, level 25, have some base mana requirements. You actually have like a mana threshold you need, but it really depends on what tactics you're using. If you're using all-in tactics, which means you're going to jump all over them with Avenger Shield, you're going to do 2 auto attacks, a Divine Storm, and a Crusader Strike. Then you're going to immediately bubble, and then run with your target until bubble wears off. You can bubble cancel in a second, but really you want to run with your target till bubble wears off. Once bubble wears off, you're going to do an entire another combat rotation on the target. So there's going to be another 2 auto attacks, Crusader Strike, Divine Storm. Then you stun them for 4 seconds. Then you put like another auto attack and another Crusader Strike into them. Maybe you throw a grenade to get an extra second of stun in there. So it's like 5 seconds of stun. You make them sit there for like plus 2 auto attacks and like another Crusader Strike, right? That would be your all-in play. That's your, I'm not stopping to heal for shit. I'm going all in with the bubble. I'm just using bubble so that you can't hurt me until my cooldowns come off again, and I can do another full DPS rotation on you. If you're doing those kinds of tactics, this mana bar is completely fine. Right? Completely fine to have a limp dick sub 1000 mana bar if you're willing to do all-in tactics. If you're not, however, Major Recombobulator Ray becomes a very important asset here because at least you're hitting closer to the mana breakpoint. She'll give you about 200 mana and 200 health back. You have a mana breakpoint somewhere between, it's about 1300. So you need 1350 exactly. You need 1350 mana currently in order to jump on a target, rotate on them, bubble, heal yourself twice, then re-engage on the target with another Avenger Shield, and then at some point you die there. Basically, for 30 seconds of combat, you need like 1,350 mana. In some combats, the fights will last long enough for you to go into 2 Avenger Shields with this amount of HP, and it's that's if you put 2 Holy Lights into yourself, and that's when you're really looking at your mana bar as being a necessary asset. So, for example, against Druids, which with this much HP, you definitely want a higher mana bar. Against Hunters, they do so much damage, you just want to use all-in tactics against the Hunter. You don't want to bother with anything. Major Recombobulator there is not for its mana, it's there to give you an extra 200 HP, because dear God, do you need an extra 200 HP. How you would kill a Hunter is you run at them, you stun the pet, literally hodge the pet as you're running to the Hunter, then Avenger Shield the Hunter, jump all over them, and then do the rotation that I just mentioned. Do full rotation on them, bubble, run with them a little bit. When a bubble comes off, rotate on them again. If they start getting away from you out of melee range because your freedom is on cooldown, you just hodge stun them, catch back up to them, keep rotating on them, blah, 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 blah. You're all in, basically. What else is there to say? Yeah, there are different gearings that'll swap certain pieces around here and there. So, for example, I take this instead of the Twilight set. Like, I give up on the Twilight set, basically. And I take, like, crab shell boots, or I take the cloth boots on my build specifically. I don't have Avenger Shield. I'll take the one-hander because she's pretty fucking good, and the Arctic Buckler, and of course the Arctic Buckler I think comes with 3 stamina in Season of Discovery. And you can see we're getting really, really high up on our HP levels. You can see our mana levels are actually respectable. There's like another piece of gear I think I take somewhere around here that increases. But yeah, so also I'm taking this, of course, because it has stamina on it, it has spell power on it. I'm using Seal of Righteousness. I'm not using Seal of Command, so I don't mind having the spell power on it. I like the bonus hit. I like the fact that it comes with a 6-second cooldown that gives me a 30% damage reduction. That really, really helps synergize very well with my combat style of trying to get 30 seconds worth of combat in. Definitely don't take this. I definitely take that. It's not the, I don't take this. I take the, I I actually have a Plains Ring on my character, so my mana bar goes up even more. But yeah, so this is me, how I like to roll in Season of Discovery in the grand scheme of things. Often I'm taking the PvP trinket instead. Where is it at? We can just say none here. It'll give us the same stats. So that's why my build is closer to like 1700 damage. You can see that the DPS in the thing is relatively low at this point, all of a sudden, like, 45-ish DPS with, like, Blessing of Might and so forth and so on. But the fact that I just have so much more armor than normal, my armor is actually extremely high. We're missing heavy armor kits here to really get an idea of what the armor actually does look like. So yeah, so I'm close to 50% armor with Devo Aura up. It's like 47% armor with Devo Aura up, I think, in this current build. But again, I've got this, which, plus taking a 30% less damage for 6 seconds in current PvP conditions is actually worth its weight in gold, especially when you have this much HP to synergize off of. But yeah, so really, Season of Discovery, in every way, shape, or form, is leaning much heavier in your gearing towards tank gear. And I said this in the Dev Talk video, which is literally uploading right now, and I probably should, yeah, let's check out the tooltip here, just in case. Season of Discovery, blah, 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 game planning, yeah, that'll be good. Okay, cool. We'll just leave it like that, that's fine. While I make this video, Jesus. Gear planner. Yep. No, we don't want that. Okay, yeah, we're over here. I'm not even sure this is a dwarf. Is this a dwarf? What is this? I think this is a dwarf. I can go up to 60 and find out. Yeah, this is probably the dwarf. Is this the dwarf? No, this is the dwarf. Okay, cool. So we do have the bonus stamina for being a dwarf. Oh, yeah. And, of course, I get, like, the PvP ratio from a dwarf is vastly superior in Season of Discovery than the human one. Gaining plus 10% armor for 8 seconds, being immune to poisons and bleeds for 8 seconds, absolutely insane. Synergizes spectacularly with this build. This build is designed to do 30 seconds of combat. He's going to catch you with Avenger Shield. He's going to lean on you until you get away from him. He's going to heal himself while you are trying to beat the crap out of him. He's going to catch you again with another Avenger Shield, and then he's going to do a proper rotation on you, meaning he's going to try to use Bubble offensively while rotating on you. So the other build gets 2 rotations, right? You do a rotation, Bubble, run with the guy, wait for your cooldowns, rotate on them again, and then maybe you get like an extra auto attack and CS in there, and then you fucking die if they haven't died already. This build plays with you until it runs out of mana or gets super low on mana, and then it comes after, and then so it does a normal rotation on you. Catches you with Avenger Shield. It does a normal rotation on you. Then it bothers itself to heal the full when you finally get away from it. It uses it uses Recombobulate Array to get the appropriate amount of mana, like the 1350 mana, no problem. It heals itself to full, and then it comes after you again. It might not catch you until it gets another Avenger Shield up, but there's been so much time wasted at this point that it's definitely going to get an Avenger Shield up. It'll catch you with the second Avenger Shield, and then it goes in on a proper rotation. And when it's properly rotating on you, out comes the Hydra Sword, because why the fuck not, right? So you catch them, and right before you make contact, you get out your best DPS weapon, and you're just like, hey, man, let me give you the business. That's how this guy is supposed to roll. A little bit of a different build. He also has the silk boots to help him. So when he's standing there trying to heal himself to full, that's when you want to use the spider silk boots, because that's when you're going to take the vast majority of damage, or just whenever you're going to take the vast majority of damage. Pop the activatable here. It'll be worth like 200, 300 HP, give or take, depending on what class you're going up against. Really good stuff. I like this build. This build is a sex machine, and I am happy with it. But the TLDR here, and I said this in the previous video, is that going into the future, it is highly likely that the Season of Discovery dev team is going to correctly design tank gear, okay? So what does tank gear look like in classic World of Warcraft? It doesn't look like, in theory, it would be high stamina, high damage mitigation gear, right? But nobody likes that. That makes nobody happy. That makes it hard for the DPSs to parse because your threat per second is very low because you're all about mitigation. You're not getting a lot of rage regeneration. You're not getting a lot of mana regeneration. The healers are pissed off because they have nothing to parse against. You're not taking enough damage for their liking. What this means is that gearing in classic World of Warcraft for a tank means that your gear for tanking has to be DPS gear. It's high stamina DPS gear. High stamina DPS gear. So that would be like... this gear is kind of a good example. So 5 strength, 14 stamina, and then green armor, meaning it has more armor than normal, isn't the worst thing in the world. We want Avengers Helm to compare this to. Thank you very much. Scroll up a little bit. There we go. The tanky helm is almost properly geared for a tanking helm in Season of Discovery. If instead of bonus armor, this thing had even more strength, or it had like 1% critical strike, it would be perfect PvP gear, and it would also be perfect tanking gear. So what this means is that going forward, unless Blizzard screws up their tanking gear and pisses off the player base, which the player base will yell at Blizzard, and Blizzard will self-correct so that they put in the proper tanking gear in the game. Proper tanking gear in Classic World of Warcraft is going to be high stamina, and then mediocre DPS gear. High stamina, DPS gear. High stamina, DPS gear. Never going to be high stamina mitigation gear. Never, ever, 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 ever are we going to see that again. That's just not the way forward for Blizzard. That's always going to be your PvP gear. Okay? That's your perfect PvP gear. Well, your perfect PvP gear in Season of Discovery is going to be high stamina, some combat stats, and then like critical strike, because critical strike is what you're going to scale off of harder than all the strength gear. Hopefully I proved that at the beginning of the video. Right. So what this basically means is that tank gear is going to be your DPS gear. Tank gear is going to be your DPS gear. I cannot stress this enough. Tank gear is going to be your DPS gear. Even your healing in Battlegrounds gear, like your full tier 3 suit, is pretty fucking tanky, and it might very well end up being your DPS gear, and no, I am not joking. Anyways, so I'm at a video here, and Deus Volt. Hopefully that helps you guys with your gearing in Season of Discovery. Please do not be a pure DPS Paladin. Pretty much whatever the hell this is. Let's put that on, and let's get the highest DPS Twilight Avengers chain. Yeah, things I can possibly get. These don't have enough DPS for people who want DPS gear, so we'll put that on. I'm not sure these gloves have as much DPS as DPSers would want. They probably want the Pugilist Bracers. Instead, it's even more DPS. Yeah, that's what we want for PvP. We want DPS, man. We want all the DPS in the world. More DPS, man. Is this the best DPS belt you can possibly have as a Paladin? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Oops, Stamina, Intellect, Stamina, Spirit. I know these are. Are we good? Okay, cool. So this is like the highest. No, they'd want different shoulders. I already know these people. They're mentally challenged monkeys. They're probably going to wear some leather shoulders. Yeah, that's probably it. I'm trying to find some stamina strength leather shoulders that are like super low stamina, but I think they force you to go high stamina shoulders in Season of Discovery. I could be wrong. Sparkle Shell Mantle, Slime Encrusted. Nope. Okay. Don't be this Paladin. Don't be the 1400-ish HP Paladin that has like a non-existent mana bar. How are you even getting this mana bar? Why is this mana bar 1,000? What did I do? What's causing this? Am I stupid? Where are you getting your intellect, good sir? Pugilist Bracers. Win. I don't know why the mana is so high. Oh, it's the boots. I'm an idiot. Derp. Twilight Avenger boots. Get it on. Yeah. Didn't change the stamina at all, did it? Jesus. Don't be this Paladin. Don't be the 1400 HP Paladin with a non-existent mana bar and a Hydra Strike and taking Twilight Avenger Helm. Probably not worth it. Maybe you can get away with it with Major Recombobulate Array. I'm completely down with this build if you're willing to use health pots and use a Major Recombobulate Array, and you're willing to go all in tactics on your enemy, I am completely fine with this build. This is going to maximize your DPS. Again, you have like 60 DPS, give or take, with this build. But she is still super low stamina. Please stay away from this. This build right here is going to be closer to this stat line here. This stat line here. If you're willing to go all in with health pots and stuff, then the HP disparity between these two builds looks a little bit better, because it ends up being, this is an important thing to note, right? So you'll have like 1400 HP. Major Recombobulator Ray or Recombobulator Ray will increase it by 200. And then a healing pot will increase that by like another 300 if you get the cheap healing pot, which I highly suggested. So you have like 1900 effective HP, and that'll be 1900 effective HP compared to my build's like 1700 plus 500 for using those items. Right, so it was like, what was it, 1900? 500, 400, yeah, 1900. So 1900 times 1.3 equals, yeah. So maybe I have 25%. It's only you're going up in DPS considerably, and your HP bars aren't that far off. I'm down for that, right? I'm okay with this if you're willing to use Major Recombobulator Ray and you're willing to use a healing potion to get the job done. I still would suggest, in the grand scheme of things, that you just put on this damn hood. It's going to increase your HP significantly. But I'm totally on board if you want to go all in on the DPS, but you'd have to use minor Recombobulator Ray. You have to use all in tactics. You have to use a healing potion. I can tell you right now that with my far more tanky build, when I have 1700 HP and I'm using a healing potion and I'm using minor Recombobulator Ray, I'm barely surviving versus like hunters. Like, I'll kill the hunter. I went all in on the hunter. I kill the hunter, and I've got like 10% life left. I've got like 20% life left. I'm like, damn, that was close as fuck. And I'm not sure the DPS makes up for that. You might die. Maybe the critical strike will come through. Maybe having Seal of Command makes it better. I really don't know. Anyways, end the video here, and Deus Vult, boys. But yeah, the way of the future is find the tankiest gear you can and put it on your Paladin, or be ready to go all in with bonus health trinkets and healing potions. This will not last. The only reason why Minor Recombobulator Ray is even here is because you don't have any better trinkets. Once you get better trinkets, you're going to want to use those trinkets. You're going to more want to wear the tank gear. Healing potions are always healing potions, which are really nice and will very much benefit more DPS-oriented classes. Anyways, end the video here, and Deus Vult, boys.